All right, welcome to our new video that Oneida Environmental has designed in the purpose of showing a underground storage tank inspection. And this is me, Sean Surrey. I'm the Environmental Compliance Inspector. We are actually going to a site here, one of our business sites, and checking the records. The first thing we do is we arrive on site and we check off 12 consecutive records of their tanks and their lines. And this one's very organized, one of our sites, and we're making sure they all have passing reports of the tanks and lines. And here I'm going through and I'm checking those things, explaining that everything looks good in at this site in the records at this time. And I also will check the tank insurance to make sure that that's up to date, the liability during a federal inspection of the underground storage tank. Here we're looking at an ATG. I always take a look at the automatic tank gauge to make sure it has power and everything's working. This one has an alarm on it, but it's not an alarm that we have to be concerned about because it is auto dial failure. It's one of the capabilities to send to the tank filler to let them know where they're at on their tank so they can have a delivery sent. Here I'm going through the screen and I'm looking at different things that need to be printed off, like the inventory, line leak detection, and also the passing reports and a current report on the tanks and the lines. And so each tank has monitoring for the lines, and also for each tank they have a interstitial or a CSLD that they do on a 4-hour, 6-hour time frame. And here I'm checking on the lines for the underground storage tanks, the no lead, the premium, and also I believe they have a diesel here, and we're looking at the pass and fails and making sure they have at least one passing report, 0.2 for their tanks. And so I print it off and I will put this in my inspection report. And then we'll take a walk outside to do a visual inspection. Here we're walking up on dispensers. We always check underneath the dispensers to make sure that there's no leaks, making sure that there's no possibility of future leaks, making sure all the equipment is hooked up correctly, looking at the shear valves here, making sure that those are correctly mounted and that they're not leaking, there's no seepage. And so we're just making sure everything's dry here. We're also checking everything else, and any future leaks on the nozzles or the hoses. We're looking at those. We let the owner-operator know that there's a possibility of a future leak because something's maybe seeping. We'll just let them know they should probably monitor that. So we'll check all of the dispensers and then we'll finish that up, and we'll look at the tanks. Above the tanks, each one has a fill tube where the truckers fill the tanks with fuel. We're checking the spill buckets to make sure they're not cracked, damaged, that they do retain the fuel that is left over after a truck is done filling them. We're also making sure that the sumps are checked, remove all the lids, and we check to make sure that there's no fuel in those above the tanks where the pumps are and that the lines are connected. We're looking at each one here at this site, and particularly this site has cracks above in the secondary containment. That's being addressed through the owner-operator. That's where you see the sealant here. And if it's being addressed, of course, it's not a concern that they are monitoring that, and that's something that they're working on. This is also another tank that they have two sumps that are cracked, and so they're working at repairing that. When we're finished, we'll close them all up. And that's the basic inspection of an underground storage tank done by the Oneida Environmental Health and Safety.